Hey, what's up dreamers? Welcome back to a new video here on my channel. So basically I've been asked quite a bit and pretty often how I get my cities to look the way they do. And specifically, I'm pretty sure most people are referring to the visual mods. So in this short video, I kind of just want to go over a little bit about the visual mods that I use in my builds. Now, this is not going to be a highly detailed video. I'm not going to put a whole bunch of effort into it or put a lot of explanations and tutorials on how to use these mods. I simply just want to show you the mods that I use and the settings that I use for them. If you want more of highly detailed videos and better explanations and tutorials on how to use some of these mods, I will definitely link a few videos that I would recommend that I've used in the past down in the description below. I'm also going to be linking all the mods that I'm using in the description as well. And ultimately, the goal is for you to get your cities to go from this to looking more like this. So let's hop into it. Alright, so here we are in Nava County with every single visual mod that I have is set to default. So out of the box, straight when you download it, minus obviously all of the assets like the props and the buildings and stuff. But the actual visual mods that I have running in the background of my game, they're all set to default and are all turned off. And this is what it looks like. So one of my absolute favorite mods that I honestly forget that I even have installed, because you set the setting one time and then you never have to do anything to it ever again. And this mod is really going to depend on the type of GPU that you have. If you have a higher GPU, you're going to be able to turn this up more. If you have a lower end GPU, meaning graphics card, then you're going to have to turn it a little bit further down. Or if you don't have a good GPU at all, you might not even be able to use it. And it's dynamic resolution. First thing is to go into your options and find dynamic resolution. So again, depending on what type of graphics card you have, is gonna, I guess, depend on like the settings that you use. I have a pretty good graphics card, so I just go straight to 500%. But you're not there. You notice it didn't really change anything. You have to open up the slider. So by clicking F10 on your keyboard, it pops up this little screen here. I set mine to 400% and I hit apply. Now that immediately made a lot of difference in terms of like detail. I mean, you can like look at the tracks and like look at the trees and watch when I reset. It makes a huge difference. Next, every single map needs a good theme. And since I'm going for like a Wild West, American Southwest theme, I went with a theme that pretty much matched that. So coming down here and clicking on Theme Mixer, it's going to open up the Theme Mixer panel. By clicking on the top one that says Themes, you're able to choose which theme that you want to use. And I'm currently using the Sedona theme by Ronic69. Now, again, this obviously doesn't look like, what you've been seeing mine look like, but we're going to get there. We need an LUT or a LUT. So clicking on here on color correction, we're going to set an LUT. And there's a couple like really good ones that I use sometimes. For this specific map, I've been using Coastal. And again, it looks pretty awful. So now we have to change the lighting settings, and we're going to do this using another mod simultaneously with Theme Mixer, and that's going to be RenderIt. So I like to go to my atmosphere settings, and with here, I'm going to go to my in options, which I already have a profile for this. It's this Wild West theme, or this Wild West, profile. But we're going to start from scratch. So when it comes to lighting, I really only mess with two settings. One is inside RenderIt with the intensity of the sun, and then the other would be back in Theme Mixer with the sun exposure. And really, it's just about finding a really good balance between the two. Typically when I do it, I like to have a bit higher of a sun exposure in Theme Mixer, and then a lower sun intensity within RenderIt. This is because the shadows aren't so hard on the back of buildings. Whereas in the opposite, you turn your exposure way down and then you turn your intensity way up, you can get like, maybe a look that you're looking for, but these shadows become really black, like behind these buildings. So exposure up and then sun intensity down. See, like you can even read like on the side of this building here, you can like read the words versus turning this down and turning this back up. And it's just black. So I typically like to run with a lower intensity and a higher exposure. But again, it's about finding that medium balance of like the color that you want. All right, so before we put away render it, let's go and look at my profile and look at some of the settings that I have. So within render it, underneath options, you have a bunch of different settings. And again, I don't really know a lot of what all of they mean. I usually follow some guides, and specifically, I follow the render it guide, which again, it will be down there in the description below. But I just kind of want to go through my settings so you guys can see them and either copy them or, kind of adjust them to what you like and whatever fits your build. And again, specifically with lighting, it's really just going to be based off of like your scene or your build. And every single LUT and actual theme is going to change the way the lighting needs to be. So you're just going to have to play with it. And just remember, it's always going to be like a constant give and take between the theme mixer and your render it settings. The texture settings isn't something that I really mess with all that much. I kind of just follow the recommendations from the render it guide and then just other recommendations that I've seen throughout. I pretty much just keep the AFL at 8 for all of them, with the MMB at zero point 0.0. Now, with the environment settings, again, it just depends on the type of build that you're doing. I actually usually don't use static fog enabled. But for this build, I think it makes it kind of look a lot better and it makes these almost hideous mountains kind of, I guess, it makes the background just blend in better with the build and the overall aesthetic just looks nicer. And look, all these settings right here is just you're just gonna have to play with them. Like personally, I don't have any method or any rhyme or rhythm to them. I just play with them. Like I just move the sliders back and forth until I get something that I like personally. And again, remember, I don't usually use the fog in general. So most of my builds that you see don't even have fog enabled. It's just this build. All right. So the last setting within render it is post processing. Now, I'm going to show you my settings. A lot of this stuff I got straight from the guide. I don't understand a lot when it comes to anti-aliasing and that kind of a thing, but these are the settings that I use. All right, the next mod that I want to talk about is visibility control. Now, what this mod basically does is let you adjust the render distances for the different types of objects within your build. And just like most of the mods, this mod is going to be heavily dependent on the type of graphics card that you have. And essentially, this will allow you to set the LOD to put however much strain or pressure that your card can handle. And just note, just because your graphics card can display it doesn't mean that it's going to give you the FPS that you want while playing. So while you might be able to enhance your settings for like a screenshot or just capturing like a specific scene, you might want to lower them while you're actually building and playing the game. Okay, so for my buildings, I generally do close up shots, so I don't need to go super far away from them. So I usually leave them right around 1500. And then I don't ever mess with the distance multiplier. It probably does have some sort of effect. I personally don't really notice it. If you're someone who does understand that and you want to put that in the comments and kind of explain it, that would be awesome as well. Okay, for my networks, I usually turn them up pretty high because they don't typically affect FPS all that much. And I like to be able to see my networks pretty well from any angle. Vehicles, I usually just leave pretty low just because I usually don't have a lot of vehicles within my cities and I want to kind of save my FPS in that regard. Okay, so for me, props are really important. I put a lot of props into my city, and there's something that I really want to stand out and be seen from farther distances. So I generally turn it up a little bit higher to like around 7,000. Okay, so trees are another thing that I really want to be able to stand out. As you see, like right now, all the trees way off in the distance, they look like crap and you can't really see them. So I like to be able to see them while at the same time, it is extremely taxing on your graphics card and it can really affect your FPS with the amount of trees and the low distance that you have for them. But I usually set them around 4,000. And then for my citizens, That's another one that I usually keep pretty low to try to save on FPS. All right, and then the next thing that I wanted to talk about has to do with the clouds. So the first mod is cube map replacer. And essentially what a cube map is everything that is not land or attached to the ground. It's the atmosphere all around your map. So for each map, your cube map is probably going to be different depending on the scene. If it's a real hot tropical one, you're probably not going to have very many clouds, or you're just going to have like that tropical cloud look. Whereas for like a desert, it's generally going to be like a pretty clear sky, which I have used for this map. However, with the fog, I am also going to be running a overcast cloudy look. But for you, you're just gonna pick one that you really like, and you can go to the Steam Workshop and find a whole bunch of different cube maps. Just type in cube map. And then the next mod that I use is AD Cloud Replacer. And then for me, I usually set them to furry clouds, or at least for this map, that's what I'm doing. And I guess kind of the difference between this mod and the last one is that this kind of gives you more specific clouds, whereas the cube map replacer is more for like the atmosphere. AD Cloud Replacer also allows the animation of clouds, so you'll see them moving as the wind blows or as the earth rotates. All right, and the last thing that I wanted to show that I use to make those really cool cinematic screenshots is using the cinematic camera mod. So something I like to do is turning that field of view way, way, way down, which opens up your town, I guess, or your scene a little bit better. It's gonna make your background look a lot more like defined. But I go there and then I click on the just the cinematic camera, and you can get some really awesome screenshots versus without it. All right, the last thing I wanted to show you was it's not just all the mods, and I preach this all the time. It's not just the visual mods that makes the difference. It's obviously the build, right? So for example, if I took away all of the trees and vegetation, watch what it looks like. And then all of the props, and then all of the decals. And this is like what you're left with. Those props and decals make such a big difference. And basically, what I'm trying to show here is that without all of the love and detail that you put into your own cities and your own towns, no amount of visual mod is going to give you the look that other builds that you might see have. So, again, I just encourage you to really practice and finding your detailing skills when it comes to city building. And all right, guys, yeah, that's going to do it. That's pretty much the before and after of all of my visual mods. If you have any questions, make sure to put them down below in the comments, and I will definitely help you out. Also, feel free to join over on my Discord. The link for that will be in the description. I'm pretty much always around to answer any questions that you might have. Anyway, guys, have a good one, and we'll see you in the next video.